What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 26 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. I'd like to give a big shout out to our new listeners in Malaysia and Sweden. That brings our total listeners to 29 countries. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please share this with your friends, rate us, and review us. That helps more people find this podcast as they search on drugs, addiction, or recovery. When we come back, we'll start this episode entitled One Day at a Time. Welcome back to this episode entitled One Day at a Time. American author Deborah Crombie wrote in her book, Kissed a Sad Goodbye, and I quote, "You can only do things one day at a time, sport. Sometimes life is so bloody. That's the only way you can get through it. But the good bit about living one day at a time is that when nice things happen, you enjoy them more than people who are always thinking about the past or the future." The concept of living in recovery one day at a time comes from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So for this episode, I'll be referring to alcoholics and staying sober. But this information is applicable to people in any addiction or simply to all of us who might struggle with anxiety about the future, shame about the past, or simply boredom in the present. Let's start by looking at the benefits of approaching your recovery and your life as a one day at a time journey. First, living one day at a time allows you to tackle something that you can be responsible for, rather than having to focus on never drinking again the rest of your life. You can set the goal each morning when you wake up to make it through today sober. So it's sort of like taking baby steps, rather than running a race that you fear you might fail or tire of. It provides manageable pieces of your recovery and allows you to live out the serenity prayer on a daily basis, rather than living in your desire to control things that are out of your control or living in your fear of failure. Secondly, it keeps you focused on the present rather than dwelling on the guilt and shame of your past or the stress and anxiety of the unknown in the future. In this way, you're not focusing on the what-ifs or the what could-have-beens, but you're focusing on what is. President Abraham Lincoln is quoted as saying, "The best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time." Third, by staying in today's situations and circumstances, this allows you to not only develop coping skills for today, but to build on those coping skills in a way that they become automatic responses as things arise each day. In this way, you deal with one problem at a time rather than being overwhelmed by having to solve a whole boatload of problems all at once. Self-help author Karen Salmonson said, "Anxiety happens when you think you have to figure out everything all at once. Breathe. You're strong. You got this. Take it day by day." Fourth, this helps you stay in touch with your emotions one at a time as they surface during the day. You learn to analyze situations for what they truly are rather than jumping to conclusions based on past negative experiences. In other words, you're slowing life and its stressors down. You have the time to look at the best way to react to situations and to determine the ones that you need advice or help to make a decision. Pope John the 23rd, who was Pope from 1958 to 1963, had a list of 10 things about how to live day by day. The first of these 10 thoughts is, "Only for today, I will seek to live the lifelong day positively, without wishing to solve the problems of my life all at once. Our fifth point is that by staying focused on one day at a time, before you know it, you've established a new way of thinking and a new lifestyle of recovery. You also begin a new pattern of making a conscious choice to not drink in response to a current situation or stressor. Finally, you end each day with the successful achievement of today's goal of staying sober. Okay, that's a great list of benefits of living one day at a time, but how do we actually do it? Well, singer and songwriter Merle Haggard had that same question when he wrote the song that became a hit by Chris Christopherson called One Day at a Time. Listen to the lyrics. I'm just a human. I'm just a man. Help me to believe in what I could be and all that I am. Show me the stairway that I am to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, sweet Jesus, that's all I'm asking from you. Give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. So for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. I believe it's safe to say we all need a teacher and a value system or philosophy to use as our model as we make our choices one day at a time. The Roman poet Horace wrote in 23 BCE the Carpe Diem phrase. This is the phrase that has become widely known as seize the day. The literal translation, however, of the full phrase was pluck the day, trusting as little as possible in the next one. So we're urged to make the most of the present rather than dwelling on the future. And dwelling in the past keeps our focus too much on the future and causes stress. And stress is a huge trigger to relapse. One day at a time, then, is an active process. It involves seizing and plucking what's in front of us today. You should focus on what you can accomplish today. Seize the day today. Release your anxiety about tomorrow and your regrets about yesterday. Are you living in today, or are you simply going through the motions as part of your addictive behavior to keep everyone from asking questions or making suggestions to change you? Here are some behaviors that would say you're simply going through the motions. Do you always pretend to be busy? Are you always talking about what you've done instead of listening to others and engaging in conversation? Do you use being tired or being sleepy to avoid conversation or connectivity? Do you use social media to avoid the real present? When you do engage with someone, is it calm, or do you have strong opinions to share? In social settings, do you remain aloof, withdrawn, or preoccupied? If any or all of those fit you, then my premise is you may simply be going through the motions. So in closing, do you really believe that you can change, grow, and get stronger today? If so, I urge you to seize the day, to pluck the day, to reach out and actively grab a hold of today each and every day. Author Brené Brown wrote, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." I urge you to be fearless in your pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. Seizing the day is like catching a wave and riding it, not sitting on a surfboard and watching as the waves go by. Mother Teresa said, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to make many ripples." So are you ready to live one day at a time, casting your stone across the water and handling the ripples, each one at a time as they come up? Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. Tune in Monday for our next episode entitled Fear of Failure. If you'd like to contact me regarding a Q&A session on addiction, speaking engagements, addiction coaching or consulting, or to utilize the From A to D curriculum and podcasts in your location, please go to my website, www.fromatod.org, and click on the contact page, or leave me a message on Anchor. As always, stay safe and stay strong.